I think that's okay. We can still do this. You know, I might just be a little happier than I normally am. That happens though. Feel free. I mean, I figure this isn't a paying gig, so why not have a drink on the job at this point? Um, Hopefully everybody's having a good week. Hopefully you don't have to be out here in this stuff. If you do, we love you for it. My wife she works at Kroger, and there's a lot of people, which is a grocery store in the States, one of the largest ones. And there's a lot of people out there that don't have a choice but to go out into this. So we got to give them a lot of credit and love if we can. I'm just kind of taking a couple of moments here to get people in the class. So I'll go ahead and open this up for questions before we move forward. Did anybody try any homework exercises? Believe me, I understand if you didn't. You know, we all have lives and issues and things going on. But I would say before you take the exam, if possible, complete admin and developer beginner on developer beginner just up until you get to where they start talking about coding. Because admin and app builder have zero code at all. So once you get to like here, you can stop on dev beginner. Admin beginner, do all of that. I would make sure that I had both of these completed, and I would probably, if you've completed them before, like after taking this class, go back and complete them again. Because I think that anytime you're in a situation where you can have requirements that you can try to solve is a good situation, especially if it checks your work. So you may have completed something using the step-by-step process in Trailhead, but if you can go back and just read the requirement again and do it without looking, it's way better. So, you know, some of us learn through that paint by numbers, which is great. Some of us learn by hearing somebody ramble on about it forever. Some of us learn by getting, you know, questions asked to us. So I'm going to use all of those class, if I can, to make sure everybody has as much uptake as possible here. So I think we were on security, right? Does anybody have any questions about, I think it was on developer beginner, the security? I think I only gave you a couple of modules, right? Any questions before we move on?
Ryan, this is Sarah. I have a question for you. It's not related to security, but the reason I joined this course is because I wanted to prepare myself for admin certification. But are we going through the developers? Because I think admin stuff is too much for me already. So I just don't want to involve myself in developer.
No, we're not doing, okay, so I would say when you're talking about admin and developer, you know, there's not a really good distinction. If you're actually working projects, you can't be a good developer if you're not an admin. And you can't be a good admin if you're not a developer. Like the skill set is the same. Now, we would say developer in quotation marks usually means code. But what I'll tell you is that the Salesforce platform at this point, there's very little I need to code. I seldom run into a situation to where I need code anymore. Mm-hmm. With the process builder, I mean, I can do, what else do you need to do? And we'll cover that, right? But it's like, it used to be, there was a lot of stuff we couldn't do. For instance, we couldn't create any record other than a task in Salesforce with point and click declarative just a few years ago. So that's why Apex was, and this coding language became, oh, everybody needs Apex, because we couldn't do a lot of things. But now, with the process builder and visual workflow, which they call flows now, it gives us a huge amount of tools that we didn't have before. You see what I mean?
Right.
And the process is, if you can do it with point and click declarative, then do it with point and click declarative. Because once you go to Apex, you're stuck in a version. Right? It's faster. The code is perfect. If you can do it with point and click, do that. Because it's going to be perfect when it's done. Whereas if I go and try and write something, it's not going to be perfect 99 out of 100 times. So the first step is always understand what you can do with standard functionality and point and click declarative. Because over time, as we move through these releases, we're less and less needy as far as the folks that can write Apex code.
Right. Just need the configuration.
Because I can do so much with point and click. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I would say everybody should start here. Everybody needs to start on the front end. Like, why are we doing this? Not necessarily how it's coded on the back end, but why are we doing this in the first place? Which I think I've said before in this class. Why is the question I always ask. It's like, I need this. Okay, why? And then they look at you, you know, kind of blind-eyed. Like, I'm not really sure. I just was trying to throw a problem at you that I thought you couldn't solve. That's usually the answer, by the way.
Right.
When you say why, it's like, well, okay, so now you want to know a reason? I was just wondering if you could do it.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry,
yeah.
I might be rambling a tad.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry.
Does anybody have any questions? So we were talking security, right? What was the first step as far as security? Like, what's the first thing you want to look for?
Access or permission?
Well, that's the two things that we have to understand security.
Record owner.
Yeah, why? Why is record ownership important?
Because it tells you that who has created this record.
Not necessarily. Does the owner have to be the one that created it?
No, you transfer it later.
What does ownership give us?
It tells us that the owner has access to this.
What level of access do they have?
Read and
write.
Read, write,
right. Sure.
Full access.
That's it. He was trying to remember it. And those of us in this class where English is like your third or fourth language, I'm always in awe of you guys, you know. But we said what the first thing we look for as far as access versus permission is what over here? Ownership, right? What's ownership give us?
full access.
Full access. What does that literally mean? Well, it means you can what?
You can do the four things that create, edit, delete, transfer.
Now, does that mean you can actually do it? Question, go ahead.
Yes, you can do it if you have full access.
Well, no, that doesn't mean you can do it. That doesn't mean you can actually do it.
Right.
Because access and
Okay,
permission are different.
yeah.
You
Right.
got to have both. Right? So if you've got full access, all that tells me is I can clear out this whole side of the matrix. All right, they've got full. That's the highest level of access they can get. You can't get double full. You with me? This is additive.
Are you drawing something, Ryan?
Oh, are you not seeing it?
I'm not. This is Chris.
Okay,
I'm
I'm
not
sorry.
seeing anything.
Excuse me. You see, maybe I'm not sharing. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. Excuse me, guys. Okay. Here's what I was doing. You see it now?
Yep.
So we said if you own the record, what do you get?
Full access.
Full. So what does that mean? Well, you get what? The access to do what?
Read, write, read, edit, view.
Read, write, transfer, delete.
View, edit, share, transfer, and delete. What are we sharing?
Record.
Access.
Oh.
We're sharing access, and you can't do it in Lightning right now. Well, you can if you upload an app from the App Exchange. But in Classic, there's a share button. And you can literally share one record. So you can't share a record unless you have this. Can I delete if I don't have full access?
No, you cannot.
No. You see, like this is like what you're trying to do on this access side of the matrix is clear it out with this. It's like, all right, it's already happened. I don't have to do anything else. If they own it, they already have it, and I can move over here. Are you with me? Sort of. Maybe.
Yeah.
You will be. So, what if I don't own the record? What do I get?
Nothing.
Well, it depends on what. Do you guys remember OWDs? Org-wide
What do you
defaults? What if we set them to private? What does that mean? Organization-wide defaults for a specific object.
Then
You own the
get
record, then you can see it, right?
Well, the owner gets what level of access because they own it?
full access.
Full. So what's everybody else get? Well, that depends, doesn't it?
Yes.
If I set OWDs to private, what does that mean?
No access.
Yeah, the owner gets full, everybody else gets what?
Nothing.
So what does that mean? If you have no access, what's the outcome?
No records to see?
Yeah, so if you search for a record, like let's say there's a Ryan Scaff record and it exists, but I don't own it and OWDs are set to private. If I search for it, will I find it?
No.
No. That's access. It's like, does it even exist in your little universe as a user?
And regardless of who created it, Ryan?
Well, if you create it, you automatically have what?
Full access.
Ownership, which means you really have what?
Full
If you
access.
own a record, you get full, right? Well, if I own a record, like let's say Ryan is the owner, and let's say Ryan transfers ownership to Joe. What's Joe got now?
Full access.
Full
Full
access.
access. What's Ryan got?
Full access.
Full access.
Nope.
No,
None.
I got nothing.
You see what I mean? It's like passing the ball from one person to another.
Gotcha. So you lose it all. Then once you create it and you transfer it, you lose ownership essentially.
If OWDs are private,
Mhm.
you see what I mean? But when I was talking about our plunge, what did I say we always wanted to start with? More complex or less complex?
Less complex.
Less. Do we want to be more restrictive or less restrictive?
More restricted.
Less.
More restrictive. You with me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. we're making some headway here. This is the hard part of Salesforce. This is why people are making a lot of money in Salesforce, because they understand this. It's never taught in such a way where people can understand it. It's usually trailhead exercises with 1 through 10, click pass, or somebody reading a PowerPoint to you. You just have to like keep doing it until we get it. So I don't know how many classes it's going to take, but we're going to do it until people understand security. Because if you don't, you cannot be an admin, and you will be a lousy developer too, because you won't know the front end. You won't know why you don't have, there's a million reasons why this is a good thing to understand. Anyway, so what if it's public read only? Owner gets what?
Full access.
Public owner gets full access, but
Owner gets full.
yeah, but
Everybody else gets what?
public
Just only.
Read only.
only access.
Right?
Just-
So when I talk about read only, I don't say public read only anymore. Here's how I do it. I say read only. Okay? So then what if they're set to public read write? What's that mean?
Owner gets full access. Other
Everybody
people
else
get.
Can just read and write.
Can they transfer ownership?
No.
Can they
No.
delete?
No.
No.
Can they share access?
No.
No.
That requires the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They don't have it. Okay. So then what if I say public read write transfer? What are we transferring?
Transferring the access.
Access.
The full access.
Ownership.
Transferring ownership, right? Which is really transferring what?
Ownership.
Full access.
Full access.
Well,
Full
ownership
access.
equals what? Full
access.
access, right? Okay. Don't worry if you're lost. We will continue our discussion.
Ryan, this is Sarah. I'm lost a little bit. So when we talk about the transfer, are we talking about the transfer access only to case and leads, or we're talking about?
All right, watch this.
Okay.
Great question. I'm sure somebody else had it. Let's see. I'm going to log into. I already thought I did, but I didn't. Log into Salesforce here. All right, so when we're talking about record ownership, you got to go back to what we discussed the last couple of classes. What's a record?
Row
Rows.
It's a
in a
row on a table, which we call an object, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wow, a little slow. It's okay. That hummingbird's going to get that wolf sometime. Wow. Let's see. Can everybody mute for me just to see if maybe that's part of the slow up here? And then if you want to talk, just unmute and then mute yourself when you're done. So when we talk about record ownership, I'm going to go into the app here because I'm in setup mode right now. All right, I'm muting everybody just to make this flow a little quicker. And you can unmute yourselves. There we go. All right, so we talk about record ownership. There's a field called record owner on every record in every object. So if I go to opportunities here and I look at like all opportunities in this view, okay, my opportunities, whatever. I own them all anyway. But there's an ownership field. If I go into the record, you'll see it's actually a field called owner. Go to details tab here on the record page, and you see I'm the owner. So it's just a field that looks up to the user object. It says who owns it? Well, what do you get if you own it?
Full access.
And what's that?
View, edit, share, transfer, and delete.
What are we sharing?
Sharing the data.
No,
Full access.
you're sharing. If this
You're
share
sharing
button right here,
access.
you're sharing access, not full. You can't share full. You can only share read write. That's down here. So if you own the record, you get what?
Full access. View, edit, transfer, share, and
Does that
delete.
mean you can actually do it?
No.
No, it means that if you have access to the record, then your permissions will kick in. You got to have both. It checks access first, then permission. It always checks access first. If you don't have access, you have permission. What do you got? Well, nothing. It's invisible. If you search for it in the global search bar up here, it will not exist if you don't have access. Well, how do you get access? There's one way we know of now, right? How do we get access, generally speaking? The owner, what level of access do they get? Full. What does that mean? View, edit, share, transfer, and delete. What are we sharing?
Access.
Access. What are we transferring?
Ownership.
It
Ownership.
means we're also transferring full access. If I transfer, if Ryan owns the record, right? What do I have as far as access over here? Full, right? Then Joe over here, if I transfer ownership of that record from Ryan to Joe, now who has full access?
Joe.
Joe. So then what's Ryan got?
Nothing.
None. Do you see how important ownership of records is? Did I lose anybody here? It's okay if you're lost, just tell me. This is where people get lost. Well,
I
all right.
guess where is it that they're getting lost the most, Ryan? Then maybe that would help me because maybe I just don't know if I'm lost.
All right.
Maybe that's where I'm
That's
confused.
probably a good thing to say as well here. All right. So look, if I set my OWDs to private, which I've already done, you guys already did it too, unless you're new to the class. Well, we went to security and sharing settings, and we set our OWDs to what?
Private, I believe.
Private.
Private?
Yeah, all
So
private.
what does it mean if OWDs are private? Owner gets,
You can see only your records.
the owner gets what?
Full access?
Everybody else gets,
None.
Nothing.
what's it mean if you don't have access?
They can't see
Can't
it.
see nothing.
Well, you search for it and it doesn't exist, right? So if I come down here and look, and I look at sharing settings, stay hit on me, there it is. See how they're all private? Why do I want to do that?
You want to start at the most restrictive level.
Right, I'm going to turn everything off. With me? Because how am I going to know I need something?
By trying to search for that. and
Well, no,
not
how am
being
I
able
going to
get
know
it.
that I need to change something as an admin?
I think someone's going to tell you.
Somebody's going to ask you for something. And what's your first question going to be?
Why do you need it?
Why? Okay, we're kind of all on the same page now, right? I tighten it all down. Now my drawing just says, the only reason I do this is I'm a visual learner. So it's like access and permission, right? And we said, what's the first thing you're going to look for? Who owns it? Why? Well, that gives them the highest level of access that they can get. So what does that mean in the long run over here? If they've got full, what does that mean? They can see and change the record on the access side, right? It's like we've closed this side out. If they don't own the record, what controls that?
Duties.
OWDs. What if they're set to private?
They can see nothing. They can see only their records.
Only the records that they own. Owners get full, everybody else gets what?
Private.
Everybody else gets none. If they search for it, they won't find it, right? What's
Yes.
public read-only mean? Owner gets,
Read-only access.
well,
Owner gets full access.
Everybody
Owner
else
gets full
gets
access.
read-only, right? What if
Yes,
it's
yes.
public read-write?
Then owner gets full access. Others get read-only and
There you go.
write-only.
Everybody with me?
Yes.
Public read-write transfer, what are we transferring?
The record.
We're transferring what?
The owner.
Ownership, which means we're transferring what?
Full access.
Yes. Questions? Even if you don't understand what I'm talking about, just memorize the flow of the language. Because eventually we're going to do this enough and it's just going to be like, ding, you'll get it. It's just repetition and demonstration. What do you get if you own the record?
Full access.
Which means what?
View, edit, share, transfer, delete.
Okay. What are we sharing?
Access.
Access.
What are we transferring?
Access.
Ownership.
And ownership, which means we're transferring what?
Full
Full
access.
access.
Access. What if I don't own the record? What do I get?
Modern duties.
Organization-wide defaults, manage object-level access to records that a user does not own. What if they're set to private? What does that mean? Owner gets
Owner has full access. Everyone else has none.
public read-only.
Owner has full access. Everyone has read write, but you don't
Read
have
only.
share, transfer, or delete.
No, public read-only is read. Owner gets full, everybody else gets read-only. Public read-write. Owner gets,
Full
Full.
access.
everybody else gets.
Read
Read
write.
write?
Can they share?
No.
Can they transfer ownership?
No.
Can they delete?
No.
Public read write transfer. Owner gets,
Full.
everybody else gets.
Read write transfer.
Transferring what?
Ownership.
Ownership?
Which means you're transferring what?
Access.
There you go. What do we say next?
Role hierarchy.
What's the role hierarchy do?
Overrides the
Gives
OWDs.
access.
Overrides OWDs using a system of
Rules
Roles,
and
subordinates.
subordinates.
roles and subordinates. What's the highest level of access I can give?
Full.
It's also a group of users. Role hierarchy overrides OWDs using a system of roles and subordinates. It's also a template. They can be assigned to a user or a group of users. There's a finite number of things that can be a group of users in Salesforce. So what I always tell my clients is if you see a group of users in a test question or in a business requirement, like sales representatives, marketing representatives, product managers, right? Any kind of question where you've got multiple people that are in the same word, there's only a finite number of things that can be. One of them is the role. The other one that you want to come right to your mind is the profile. Because profile's over here. So if you see a group of users, knowing what we know now, what is it really saying? If I see sales representatives, what is it really asking you? Are we talking about access or permission? Because a group of users on the access side is a role. A group of users on the permission side is a profile. You with me? It's like, will you see the record at all? And if so, if you've seen the record, if you're allowed to see it, what can you see and do with it? So you have to have both on both sides of the matrix. I'm just showing you ways to get full access to where you cannot have to mess with this side. Figure it out as quickly as possible. Usually, by the time I get to the role hierarchy, I know they have access or not. I mean, 99 out of 100 times, they own the record. Because they're like, oh, I can't see something I need to see. And usually, they're the user that owns it, and it's usually over here.
Say that use case again, Ryan.
Oh my God, I don't even know what I was talking about at this point.
So Ryan, you were saying they own the record, but they can't see it.
Well, okay. So if they own the record, they get what level of access?
Full.
But then they have no permissions. So the exact same thing happens. It says, well, you have access with no permissions, so you can't see it either.
Gotcha.
You see what I mean? Let me show you the profile. It'll probably make more sense.
Right. So they don't have permissions. Basically, they're not set up with a profile or the correct profile.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, it's for the permission set that you're talking about. But here's the math of this. It says, all right, everything else be damned, access and permission. If you've got read only over here, and you've got create, read, edit, and delete over here, what do you get? If I've got access, you get read only, right? Because you have access, you have permission, but no access here. You see that?
Right.
Or like, I can say, I got full access over here. Sorry, full access over here, and no permissions over here. What can you do?
Everything.
No, you got no permissions over here.
Nothing.
You can't do anything either. You have access and no permission. Do you see?
And do nothing.
Yeah,
Can't even see it.
yeah, it's the same thing. You have to have both for anything to happen. So like if I say, all right, you got full access over here because you own the record or something, and you've got read only over here, what do you get?
Read only.
Read only, because you have access but not enough permission to do everything access allowed.
Right.
Conversely, I could say I've got read only and create, read, edit, and delete over here. What do you get?
Create.
Read only.
You get read only because you have permission with no access. You have to have both. It's like an equal sign. Do you see that?
Well, it sounds like the access is going to always be the overriding.
Yeah, because it's what it checks first.
Right.
Yeah, but
If
if
you have
that
access, then it says if you do, what can you see and do with it?
but if the access overrides the permission, then how can, if you have full access on the access but nothing on the permission, in that theory or that analogy, then access should take over.
Okay, so the problem
Yes,
right
and
now,
that's my question too. Profile and permission doesn't override, right?
the problem right now is that we haven't showed you the profile yet.
Oh,
You know what I mean? So let me show you the profile. Right now, we were doing security, right? Let me go to share. Let's see, what did I do? I think I put Joe in the role hierarchy, didn't I? What's the role hierarchy do?
it can override OWDs,
Using a system of what?
users.
No. It overrides OWDs using a system of what?
Royal hierarchy.
Roles and
Roles and subordinates, right? What's the highest level of access I can give using the role
full
hierarchy?
access.
And it goes up, right? If they own the record, someone assigned this subordinate role owns the record, what do they have as far as access?
Full access.
Well, so then if there's a role subordinate relationship in the role hierarchy, what does the role get?
Full
Full
access.
access.
Full. So they both have this, right? You see that? Access, permission.
Yeah.
They both got full. Why? Well, who owns it? The sub. What's the role hierarchy do?
It gives access to users above subordinates.
And why is this important? Why do we do this?
To give access.
Well, if OWDs are set to private,
Oh, because you don't want to give everyone or every profile or user a specific type of access always. So
well, we
certain
said that in a perfect world, what do we want to set OWDs to?
Private.
Okay.
private.
So if I have an org chart here where you've got CEO, middle manager, middle manager, middle manager, and then a bunch of reps. You with me? Something along these lines. If these are reps down here, who owns the records? If they're ops, for instance. Are the executives going to own the records?
No.
No.
Middle management? Do you want middle management owning records?
No.
Absolutely not. Who's going to own them?
Reps.
The reps. If they own them, what level of access do they have?
Full access.
Full access.
So what's that mean?
They can read, write, share, and everything.
Well, do you see how it's going up the chain? It's about reports.
But didn't we just say we don't want them to have full access?
No, well, no, that's not what I said. I said what we want to do first is tighten down access to where it's totally restricted. They need to have access because they got to see reports and dashboards.
Oh, right. We just don't want them to like edit it.
Yeah, we can
want 'em to
control
own
all
it.
that on the profile side.
Oh, I got it now.
You
Okay.
with me?
Yeah.
So we can give them full access through the role hierarchy, but on profile side, we can restrict their access?
Yeah, well, we're restricting permission at that point.
Oh, okay.
Remember when I said the hard part of this is going to be understanding the difference between access and permission? I'm just trying to give you guys enough scenarios to where you can like literally see it. Because eventually we're going to do this enough to where it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You just haven't seen profiles yet. The problem right now is I need to demo profiles.
Ryan,
Yeah.
Between access and permission, where do you go to set the tab hidden or default on?
Well, see that's on the profile. We're not there yet. Do you see how we're starting to ask questions that are leading to what I'm about to talk about? That is a fantastic sign. that's really good.
Hey Ryan, this almost kind of feels like for us that like to follow international sports, take YouTube for example. We're able to look up a YouTube video clip in any sort of fashion, but if certain countries restrict us to watch the videos like Olympic sports and such because we're not granted permission, it would be like we have full access to YouTube, but the specific channel or clip.
Yeah, you didn't pay the money, right?
Yep,
So
or the country doesn't have the right to view what's open to certain public.
So is that the permission though?
All right, so look. So far, we said, who owns all the records in the org right now? You do, right? Whoever the admin is. What's that mean we got?
Full access.
Okay, so we're talking about access and permission. Ryan has full access. So if he goes in there and searches for a record, what's going to happen?
You should find it.
Find them there.
He's going to find it, right? So now the question is, if you have access to the record, this column has been smoked. We're good. It's like, all right, good job, algebra-wise. Like, wow, got that side. Because that's the highest level of access you can get regardless. So I've already got it. I don't need to do any more math here. So now I can come over here and say, all right, now I have access. The question becomes, what can I see and do with records that exist in my universe? Right? It's like, oh, I searched for it. I found it. Now what can I do? So in Salesforce, the profile is located under users. So users, and then profiles. And the one that we assigned Joe was which? Does anybody remember?
Salesforce, right?
That's the license. So if I go to users here and I look at the user detail record list view.
Oh yeah, sales profile.
The custom sales, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll go to Joe's custom sales profile. You could also get there by going to setup and profile. So the hardest thing about profiles that I've seen since I've started is that people don't realize the following. You can make changes to a profile in Salesforce if you hit edit or if you don't hit edit. So like what happens is people go to the profile, they immediately hit the edit button, and they start looking for what they're looking for. They're like, oh, it's not in here. Where did it go? And they're scrolling up and down. That's not what I need. I'm looking for record type. And next thing you know, they're back over here somewhere looking for it. Profiles, there's two ways to interface with a profile. You can hit edit or you don't hit edit. So let's start out with what happens when you do hit edit, because the vast majority of changes you'll need to make will be when you hit edit on a profile. So right now I'm on the custom sales profile. I'm going to select edit. And the first thing that's going to come up, and what we need to do as a group, is to put a Salesforce platform in our brain. You got to think, all right, what happens if I go to the profile and I go to custom sales profile and I select edit? What do I see? Like you need to do this enough to where you've got it in your brain. You've got a Salesforce org in your mind. Because in the exam, you're going to need to be able to think on that level because they're trying to trick you. But I went to custom sales profile here. I hit edit, and the first thing I can change is what?
App. Setting.
What's an app in Salesforce? Oh man, has it been that long?
Custom code and relationships to fulfill a use case.
It's a group of objects and relationships that meets a business requirement. Somebody else want to say that? It's a group of objects and relationships that meets a business requirement. Where do we find our apps in Lightning?
in the app launcher.
Okay. So if I were to go under this custom sales profile that we assigned to Joe, and I was to remove all of these apps, I'm going to leave Lightning Sales and Standard Sales, and I'm going to remove everything else. Does everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll do now is just save this. And then anytime I make a change on a profile, I always go directly to them under users and log in as them and see what the outcome is. So that,
Ryan,
yes.
what's the difference between visible and default?
Hold that thought. Just watch this for a second, right? So I'm going to get there in 2 seconds. Good question. Watch. So if I go to a Joe employee, I log in here. What's Joe got? Does anybody remember where the Force.com app menu was in Classic? I don't even know if I brought it up, but it used to be that the app launcher of today was over here on the right-hand side. What you'll notice is there is no other app. The user cannot get lost in the app launcher. Do you see that? Or what you can do is go to your own Salesforce admin profile. Any minute now. So now let's go to the admin profile. So, you know, the system administrator in Salesforce is just another profile. If I can get away with it as a consultant, I don't use the admin profile. I clone it and make a profile off of it, which is what we're going to do right now. So I'm sysadmin. Look, I can grab the sysadmin profile just like any other profile. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to remove all the apps I don't need. There's a million apps out of the box here that we do not need. What is any of this stuff? Who knows, right? If you don't know what it is, then remove it. Turn everything off.
Would you be doing that in a new org, or if, like, let's say we got hired from somebody? I guess I'm confused when you would do this.
I think that the protocol is the same. It's either we're going to turn everything off from the start and only add functionality as needed, or we're going to turn off everything we can. It's been used wrong for years, right? So you're trying to like turn everything off and find out what they really need. It doesn't really matter which way you look at it, you know? It's like there's so much functionality available in this platform that there's no company using it all. So for me, it's always like turn it off and see what they even need. Simpler is always better because that's good user interface. If it's simple, you're walking your client, your user through. So even right now as an admin, I've got my app settings. What did we say an app was?
Custom objects and relationships to implement a business use case.
A group of objects and relationships that meets a business requirement. What's an object?
The table, which is made up of field records and tabs.
What's a tab?
Visual representation of an object.
All right then. So what I would do here is I would save and then go back and look. What you'll notice is even as an admin, what you'll find is admins will leave everything on. And it's like, you're just another user. I always configure my profile to meet whatever project I'm working on. The first thing I do when I get into work in the morning is I say, all right, what am I doing? And I pull all the stuff I don't need out of my profile. If you're an admin, you probably, especially if you're a young admin, you probably have, when I'm saying young, I mean an admin new to the ecosystem, you probably got all these tabs open. You know, you got too much open. But now I'm the admin here. If I look, how many apps do I have available? You see, there's no reason to see anything else. That's what I'm working on today. I go to the profile and I configure it for the project I'm working on. Starting small, only the stuff I need. I'm just another user. I'm not special. Any questions? I know I'm pontificating a tad. It happens. This stuff gets really bland unless somebody has a story to tell. So what I did is I went to Joe and I turned off all the apps except for the sales application. So then going back to that custom sales profile, the next group of settings is going to be what they call the tab settings. What would we say a tab was? Visual representation of an object. Shows up in the all tabs bar up here, right? So the next profile settings are going to be based on the tabs that exist. So I'm going to go back to my profile, find my custom sales profile. I'm going to select edit. There's two ways to affect change to a profile. One of them is to hit edit. The other is to not to hit edit. I'm going to select edit. The top one was the app, a group of objects and relationships that meets a business requirement. Question was made about the default earlier. The default app is going to be the one that the user assigned that profile sees first. Well, right now, our profile does not have permission to see Lightning. If you remember when we logged in as Joe, you could not see Lightning experience. It was just classic. So right now it's set to default, and we're going to need to work on this some more later. Then if I come down here, yeah.
Ryan, sorry. So what's visible? Just like you can see the tab?
Yeah.
You can see the app?
If they go to the app launcher, it's going to show up in the app launcher. So if I go here, let me say this real quick just in case I didn't. Now, if I go here to the app launcher.
Right. I understand like in that. Yeah.
They're going to see just that one app. We're controlling what apps they can see. See?
And how about default? It's what the user is assigned to see.
Well, if they have multiple apps assigned, the default is the one that's going to show up when they log in. If you have 5 apps available, the one that'll show up upon login is the default.
And where will it show up? In that 9 in the buttons?
Well, when you log in, if you come in here and do this, it's going to look like this when you log in. If that's your default app, the sales app,
oh, I see.
That's going to show up when you log in. If you have multiple apps available, that's the one that's going to show up when you log in. Make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So the next group of settings, if I do hit edit on a profile, so I'm going to go back to my custom sales profile. Sorry if you hear my dog or my son. They're both noisy. So I'm going to hit edit because I can affect change if I hit edit or if I don't hit edit on the profile. So I did hit edit. I'm going to scroll down. All right, now tab settings. What did we say a tab was?
The representation of object.
Visual representation of an object. So if I was looking at an Excel sheet, the tab is down here, sheet 1, sheet 2. The tab is not the object. It's its own thing. But your tab settings tell you where that tab will exist in Salesforce. So, excuse me, if I go to accounts and I make them default on, that means it's going to show up on the all tabs bar in that app. So up here, and also in the all tabs area. So currently, which business process are we working on?
Sales, right?
Sales, right? So I'm going to turn off every object. I'm going to go to tab hidden because the user assigned that profile will not see it unless it's on or off. I'm going to leave app launcher here, but I'm going to go down on everyone. I'm going to turn them all tab hidden. If I don't know what it is, it's hidden. I'm going to turn everything off for this one profile. Now, the question always happens here, can we do this all at once? The answer is no. I'm just kidding. Do it by hand. I'm pretty sure you could do it with the data loader if you had to. They added a bunch of these this last release. It didn't used to be this tedious. Contacts we need, we'll make those default on. Content. I'm just going to hide everything that I'm not using. Because that's all about user adoption. I want it to be as simple as possible. We're not using dashboards. We're not using any of this stuff. So to have it on the bar right there in front of everybody doesn't make any sense. Turn it all off. And then as we move through the plunge, we'll add stuff. I'm just trying to get them to complete their most important process using the tool that I built manually. Because once I've done it manually and everybody understands how it works, then I can start automating stuff. But if I try to build a bunch of automation off just, my gut feeling, which a lot of this becomes as a consultant, it's like, oh, I think I understand your process, but usually you don't understand much. You can try.
I have a question. Like when
Yeah,
you
go
hit
ahead.
the tab,
Yeah.
are you able to find it when you go to the Alt tab session?
Well, okay, so if it's default on, that means it's on the bar and also in the Alt tabs area.
Okay.
If it's default off, it's not on the bar, but if you go up to the app launcher, it'll be in there as like a link.
Okay.
Tab hidden means if you're assigned that profile, you won't see it at all.
Got it. Thank you.
No matter what. So I'm trying to make it truly as simple as possible for the user. So what we're going to do here is make these all hidden essentially, and then log in as Joe and look. Because you'll see that I think I said last class that they come in and they see all this stuff turned on. It's like, I'll never figure this out in a million years. Salespeople are usually not tech people as far as, data entry is concerned. They're usually pretty good with their products and services. I might even turn this off.
I mean, Ryan, you almost would think that Salesforce would default all this stuff to being off to begin with.
Well, then the question becomes, and that's a great thing, that's true, but if they did that, they turned everything off and somebody didn't understand how to configure it, then how would they know what is possible?
Blessing and a curse, I guess.
That's why it's all on. They don't want to run somebody off because they're like, oh, I can't figure this out. So they just turn it all on out of the box.
They have no user adoption because it scares them.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Right. I mean, what you really need when it comes to this stuff is a lawyer, which is what I tell my clients. I'm kind of like a lawyer. It's like, I'm here to make sure you don't make huge mistakes, and they just leave everything on. You've got, everybody's an admin. That's a very common, oh, everybody's an admin. That's great. You can see and do everything. But the real idea here is, it took me a while to do that. The real idea is creating a wizard that moves your user through the business process from soup to nuts. Like, all right, you start out on the website, and then what happens, and then what happens, and then what happens, and then what happens, and you just do all of, and then what happens until you reach the bottom of the barrel and you kind of thought out every piece that could happen, and then you plan for it. And then you start metering and monitoring it through the Salesforce platform, the Force.com platform. I mean, that's what it's about. So let's see, I'm custom sales. Let's log in as Joe now. So I just made all the tabs hidden except for the ones that I thought I was using. So I'm going to go back and log in as Joe here. Okay, what's blatantly missing? I know we're still in Classic, but where's the sales process housed?
It's gone.
What's the sales process? The stage pick list on the op, right? What were we missing there? The op object. They didn't have either access or permission to see the opportunity object. So let's see. I'll go back to the profile. Two ways to affect change, either edit or don't hit edit. I'll hit edit. We got our app settings. What is an app? You guys know what an app is. Where's the app? There it is. See? It was hidden. I'll make it on. All right, okay. That was the problem. Now I'm going to go back, go into my app, or I'm sorry, go to my my user, log in as my user. Log in as Joe. What's he see? You think Joe walks into work in the morning and thinks, wow, that's really obtuse and I don't understand it at all? If he's sales?
Hope not.
Do you see the problem with a lot of these orgs? They have been inundated with on. It's like we have to turn things off. It's like, all right, let's figure out how to do it this way. And this will be, you know, because this is the most important one. How do we make our money? What's our bread and butter? Right? So we have to figure this one out first. So turn everything off. More restrictive. Less complex. You see how I'm putting on my Joe goggles and then going right back to the admin side? I'm going right down the line. Go right back to my custom sales profile. I know I've got my tabs handled. I know I got my apps handled. There's two ways to affect change to a profile. One is if you do hit edit. One is if you don't. I'm going to go ahead and hit edit because there's more to do. There's a lot more you can do with edit than if you don't hit edit. So I always start there. I get my apps together. Then I get my tabs together. What's a tab?
Visual representation of an object.
What if they're set to default on?
Then you're going to see it
On the bar and?
in the app builder.
In the app launcher, there's the little blue links. Saying if it's default on, it's on the all tabs bar, but it'll also be down below the apps here as like blue links. We call it the all tabs area. There. It's default on. It's up here on the bar. And then you'll also see it down here below that. Why does it keep doing that? Lightning for you. It's always a thing. There we go. View all. They just added this last release, that thing that pops down here. These blue links. So default on means it's up here on the all tabs bar. Default off means it's not up here, but it's down here as one of these blue links. Tab hidden means that you won't see it at all if you're assigned that profile. So that's why you only see those tabs when we log in as Joe, because we turned them default on or tab hidden. That's it. Now, if I go back to the profile, you just keep going. So you start out with apps, then it's tabs. And I do this every time I'm setting up a profile. I'm constantly going in, making changes, saving it, and then logging in as my user, putting on my Joe goggles and looking at it. So in this case, I'm going to hit edit, scroll down a tab, and then, oh, I didn't hit edit. Hit edit, scroll down a tab, you'll see the app settings again, right at the top. Tab settings, default on, default off, tab hidden. And then below that, we have our administrative and general user permissions. I always call these system permissions. They're always system permissions. Administrative and general user permissions, I always think about them as system permissions. These two, like checkbox cities here they've got, general user, administrative. On the permission set side, which we're going to get to shortly, they're called system permissions. On the profile side, they're called general user and administrative permissions. It's just all these checkboxes. So what I would like for everybody to do right now, before we get down here, is to go to the custom sales profile, remove all of the apps, except for the ones I show here, and then make sure you go down to your tab settings and you only need leads, accounts, contacts, and opportunities default on. Everything else should be tab hidden. The reasoning here is that they really want you to understand on the test that you cannot change a standard profile. You can only clone it. I mean, you can, but they want you to realize that what you do is take a standard profile, clone it, and make a custom profile. So what we're going to do here is make a very super restricted profile, restricted all the way down just to the business process that we're interested in, which is the sales process on the op. So we just need leads, accounts, contacts, and ops default on. Everything else is going to be hidden. And when you get there, please let me know via chat if possible. So Bill, you're missing leads and opportunities? Did you figure it out?
No, that was actually in response to after you had placed some.
Oh, I gotcha. My bad.
So that was a response from 5 or 10 minutes ago.
Okay, sorry. I haven't been paying attention.
No, it's okay.
If you couldn't tell.
That's all right. No, I totally get it. You're engrossed in what you're doing, so I get it.
Well, I'm just trying to get everybody to get to this minimum standard of quality as far as profiles and users.
Sure.
You see what I mean?
Yes.
Like, if you don't understand the profile, you definitely can't be an admin. Does everybody agree with me there?
Yes, it is critically important for sure.
It is absolutely probably the most important thing. Does anybody need help? So did everybody try to log in as Joe and get what I had as far as the outcome? So try that too if you didn't go to your user as Joe and log in as Joe. If you need help because you can't log in as Joe like I am, let me know. I'll be happy to help you. Log in as Joe and look and see. You know, he's only in Classic right now, but notice there's nowhere to get in any other app. In a perfect world, how many apps should an organization have?
I'd just say only as many as they need.
As few as possible. What's the only business process we're working on right now?
Sales.
Where is the sales process housed?
Opportunities.
On opportunities. What is it physically?
Not sure what you mean.
Well, where physically within the architecture of Salesforce is the sales process housed?
What's the opportunities?
Yeah, but which field?
Or the stage of it?
Yep. See? So when I go in as a consultant, I'm always thinking, all right, what's the most important process? We'll get after it first. And then all the other processes will kind of prioritize themselves. If you do it right, you know, you get the sales process nailed, I guarantee you're going to have marketing ASAP. It'll happen almost immediately. You're like, wow, that really worked well. You work on our marketing side? You know, it's like slay that first one really good, and then all other processes will find their way there. Accounting, finance, marketing, support, it all comes around. So going back to the profile again. Oh, logged in as Joe. Do you see that? Got to log out and then take me right back to myself. Anybody remember where you find that functionality? How do you, if you to unforce re-login as login as user?
Like permission.
Password policies? Permission policies, maybe.
It was I always forget. Login, no, that's login as any user. It's session settings under security. Down here. Session settings, and then you have to uncheck force re-login after login as user.
I thought we already set that though. Why would
No,
we do it again?
I was just asking if anybody remembered where to find it. Yeah, we're all set. I was just asking if anybody remembered where to find it.
Oh.
A couple of people did, I think. Or got close. So going back to the profile again, just go to the next group of settings. These are what we call the system permissions, or general user and administrator permissions. They're kind of annoying because it's a bunch of checkboxes. And they're all stacked on top of it. It's terrible user interface. And for a long time, I didn't realize that you could control find as far as the system permissions. So if you hit edit, and then if I was to go down to system permissions here under our tab settings and say Control F, report singular, that's a Google thing there. But there we go. Just being a little slow. But what you can do is uncheck anything that has to do with reports, right? So I'm trying to restrict this thing all the way down. Is there ever going to be somebody that doesn't need reporting functionality? If so, then I need to remove that functionality from the original profile that I created because I want it to be the most restrictive. Everybody's going to end up having the same profile in a perfect world. So how do you think I feel about delete for users?
Not good.
Treat that very carefully. Only give it to those who've proven their ability to really know the org inside and out.
So do I want users to delete records?
Only a very select few.
These are object settings down here. These are very important. We're thinking about access and permission. I own the record. What do I get? Full access, right?
Right.
And if I have read, create, and edit, but no delete, can I delete records?
No.
You see? This one is, does it exist if you search for it? This one is, if it exists if you search for it, what can you do and see? So for users, I'm always as restrictive as I possibly can be. In a perfect world scenario, I tighten it all the way down. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? In a vacuum, you tighten everything down. But, you know, one thing I will do is remove delete from users, and I'm also going to remove any other objects that we're not using. So we're not using cases. We're not using campaigns right now. You know, I'm keeping this as tight as I can, because what I'm going to do is work from it. If they need more functionality, I can add it. What I'm doing right now is trying to make the most restrictive profile so that everybody in my org can have the same profile. In a perfect world, how many profiles should you have?
Varies according to the number of users.
Well, maybe. But I'm saying if we're in a vacuum, you got productivity over time. In a perfect world, no matter what, how many profiles do you have here upon implementation? If we're being as restricted as possible and as simple as possible, how many profiles?
One.
One. You with me? Maybe not. It's okay. You're allowed to disagree. I'm giving everybody my own personal take on all this stuff. You know, if you disagree, feel free to chime in. Let's see. So we had our app settings. We had our tab settings. What's default on mean?
That they can see it and they have access to it.
They can see it on the bar, and it's also in the view all links up here, right?
Yes, it's in the app launcher.
What's default off mean?
And just the opposite of that, where it's not going to be in the app launcher and they're not going to have access to it.
No.
No. That one that it's in the app launcher, but not on the screen.
It's not on the all tabs bar up here,
Right.
on the app itself, but it does exist as a blue link in the app launcher, in the all tabs area. So what I'm saying is if it's default on, it'll be on the all tabs bar up here. If it's default off, it'll be in view all as a blue link, but not on the all tabs bar. That's the all tabs area down here. See that? Tab hidden means you won't even see the tab at all. So if I go in and log in as Joe, for instance, default on means what? See the all tabs bar here?
Yeah, and it's in the app launcher too.
Default off means what? It's not on the
Not gonna
bar,
be in
but
the app
it's
launcher.
in the area. See, I got groups here that wasn't on the bar, but it's in the area. You see that? That's in Classic. Isn't that a problem? Joe's not in Lightning? How do you think we would give Joe Lightning experience functionality? Because right now he's just stuck in Classic, right?
With the permission set.
Well, that's how I would do it. We don't even know what that is yet, though, do we? In this class? She's right, though. So if I go to the custom sales profile, set up users and profiles, and I go to custom sales, and I do hit edit, at the top we have app settings, and we got our tab settings. But if I come down here to our system permissions, our general user and administrative permissions, and I control F, and we say, let me think about this for a second. I think it's LIG Lightning. This is a Google thing here. This isn't in Salesforce, but you can find what you're looking for in the profile. If you hit edit first, and you can make them a Lightning experience user. Do you see that right there? That's a permission in the system permissions that will make Joe assign that profile a Lightning experience user. And then there's another one that will keep you from logging back into Classic. Let's see if I can find it. Up here again. Or maybe search switch. There it is. Hide option to switch to Salesforce Classic. See that one? So what we're doing is we tightened everything down on the profile and made it very restricted. And then we just gave permissions on the permission side of the matrix to users assign that profile. So now if you, go ahead.
Ryan, I just have a question. But every user that has this profile will get the Lightning access now, right?
Yeah, because a profile is a template that can be assigned to a user or a group of users.
Okay.
So every user,
if you want to assign only to a specific user, you need the permission set.
Yeah, that's what controls.
You can assign with the permission set.
Well, we're not there yet.
Sorry?
We're not there yet. I'm not to permission sets yet, but you're right. What you do in a perfect world is you strip it down to its barest form as far as the profile, and you give functionality via permission sets. That's the best practice. In a perfect world, everybody in the org has the same profile. But it's never a perfect world. And sometimes you got a lot of users and you got to split profiles up. And you got to create more than
Yeah, that's what my question is, like, not every user in that profile wants to have a Lightning. So you will give them option to switch back to Class.
Well, currently, unless you're operating in an old school organization that has lots and lots of users and a lot of Apex code and they're just afraid to switch, I mean, from now on, it's Lightning all day long. You're just not, everybody's going to Lightning because you'll see as we move forward that it's about the component-based user interface that you could not do with Classic without Visualforce. It allows us to develop components and drop them into the user interface that are completely unique. Whereas with Classic, you could not do that. We pretty much had page layouts and Visualforce. That's all we had. So everybody's going to Lightning now. you're not going to have a whole lot of people bumping back and forth anymore. It used to be for a while. That's how it was. People had to go between Lightning and Classic because the functionality was not the same on both user interfaces. So there was quite a period there where a lot of orgs could not go to Lightning. But these days, everybody's pretty much going to Lightning because they've covered enough. And the new functionality is so good that you wouldn't go back to Classic in most cases, unless there's something that, like solutions or something, they're never going to actually support again. And that's so important to your business that you're not going to, I don't know. Where were we?
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I had it set up to where I turn him off as far as Classic. So then if you go back to Joe's user detail record, you should be able to log in as Joe. And then he should be in Lightning. So what I would like for everybody to do, if you haven't done it already, let's go into the custom sales profile and make Joe a Lightning experience user and make it to where he can't log back out into Classic. And then once you get in here, as Joe, notice that if you go to his app launcher, he's got one app. And then also his default tab settings, he doesn't have much either. We're just trying to keep him out of trouble. There's way too much turned on. See? I mean, I shouldn't have this on here. This was a mistake. I'm going to go back in the profile and fix it. If you go into the app launcher and look at view all, I mean, where can they get lost? I'm trying to meet that first business process, that one that's, super important.
Man, as a user, this looks awesome. This looks so clean.
Well, that's because I turned everything off.
No, I know. I think this is awesome. This is cool.
I've worked a bunch of projects. That's it. That's all this is. I beat my head against the wall doing it wrong for years, to come to this point. But there are so many poor quality resources out there, and they don't mean to be. They've just never been shown anything. So I hope that this can scale. I hope that you guys can take some of this with you and use it in your arsenal, because it's really the most, what will happen is you get this first sales process handled, the one that they make all their money off of, then they trust you. Like once you get back through that productivity line, like once you get here, right there, when everybody says, oh, the system, that's when you're a rock star. You're like, what can we do next? It's like, wow, you eliminated 5 Excel sheets. We're sending out merge templated emails that are customized and marketed and, personalized to the client. You're integrating all of our applications into one database. Like it becomes a no-brainer at that point. But if you can't demo it or discuss it intelligently or define the terms in such a way where another human being can understand it, then you can be the smartest person in the world, but nobody's going to listen to you.
This would make it also a lot less intimidating, easier to find, and also a lot faster to use.
User adoption is everything. If they don't use it, you may as well throw it in the trash. Especially at $150 a month per user. I mean, come on, man. You got 100 users, do the math. You start here, and what you do is you find the other processes in the org, and then you're just creating another stage or status field. It might be a standard object, it might be a custom object, it might be a record type, but eventually it all comes down to doing the same thing over and over. It's just being able to listen to the word problem, pull the keywords from the problem, and then come up with the right solution based on the concept that best works with this tool. Do you see, though? As opposed to when we started this thing, there's like 150 tabs, and it's like, what am I going to do? I mean, if there's any developers in the room, this is basically Agile as opposed to waterfall. But the point and click declarative is everything. Like if I can, a lot of times these days, I'll be on a Zoom with somebody and they'll ask me for changes, and I will share my screen with them and do the changes in front of them as they ask for them. And if it's something that I can't do kind of on the fly like that, I'll be like, hey, you know what? Let's table that one for a moment. I'll get it to you this week. But these days, I sit there and let them watch me do it, and they're like, wow, I mean, they're not good. They're not going to go to anybody else because they ask for something, I do it within 2 minutes. I feel like I'm pontificating. Maybe I am. I'm gonna log out as Joe here. Go back to the profile. And then, also mobile. Like if it's simple, it's always better in mobile if it's simpler. So I'm always kind of developing in parallel. As I develop in Classic or Lightning, I'm always kind of pulling mobile up and looking and see if it looks good. So then back to our profile again. We were on system permissions. I think I removed the ability to do anything with reports. Then we went down to object settings. And that's where you get your create, read, edit, and delete. Which is, extremely important, because if you have access and no permission, what do you see? Nothing. Right? So these are what we call our object permissions: create, read, edit, and delete. Your super user permissions, whether you're talking about system up here or you're talking about object permissions down here, you can see we've got these view all, modify all permissions. Does anybody know what this means if both of these are checked?
I think that overrides everything.
Here's what happens. If you've got view all, modify all on the permission side, you've got full access and all permissions. See that? If you've got the two check boxes in the system permissions above your object permissions, you've got everything on both sides. It's the only way to get full access on the permission side. So how do we get full access so far that we know of?
Own the record.
You own the record? How else can you get it? Can I get it from OWDs?
Yes.
Not
Yes.
all of it.
Nope. What's the highest I can give with OWDs? Public, read, write, transfer. Is that full?
No.
No. So I can't get it from OWDs. Can I get it from roles?
You can, because you can give them full access for.
How do we do that? It gives you full access through what? Role subordinate relationship. Right? That's two ways. So through the role hierarchy and record ownership, you can get full. Another way you can get full is in the system permissions. You get view all and modify all, and that's like super user. That's like admin level access and permission. You're getting both. So if you've got view all, modify all on your profile over here, you get full access. It's one of the only ways to get it. There's only 3 ways we've learned: ownership, role hierarchy, view all, modify all. There are also 2 check boxes in the object settings for view all, modify all. If you have those, then you have full access to that one object. Let me show you what I mean. So for instance, if I do this, what do I get for the account object?
Full access, right?
Yep. See how this is actually on the permission side though? The profile says you got view all, modify all on the account. So you get what? Full access to all account records. You see that?
Regardless if you own it?
Yeah. You're getting it's like completely white. You have the whole, you've got it on lockdown. So the reason we would do this is for someone called like a delegated admin. So if I've got 500 users and I'm the only admin, can I possibly administer for 500 people? There's no way. Right? If they all ask questions and they all need issues and they all have requests, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that physically as a person. So what we do is I will take somebody in each department and I'll make them a delegated admin and I'll give them functionality through their profile that allows them to be my like mini admin in their little department. Does that make sense? I might let them create users or see every record in that object. For instance, the one that's going to be important is going to be which one is the most important one in our business process. Ops, right? So I might give somebody in the sales department full access to the opportunities object so they can go in and make changes and solve problems. So I'm not having to deal with all the little stuff. I want to deal with the stuff that shaves ROI off of the project, return on investment. I don't want to have to be messing with password resets and creating new users in the sales team. Like I don't have time for that if I'm 1 to 500. Everybody with me there?
Yes.
Do you think I give this out very often?
Not if you can help it.
No, I don't give it out at all, generally. If I can get away with it, I'm not giving full access on a profile. That's bad practice. I'm taking away delete. I'm just restricting this thing all the way down. So now if I go back and log in as Joe, who is assigned this profile, and I log in and look, and I look at, say, an account record. What's an account?
It's the company.
A business relationship that we're tracking, right?
Yes.
Who owns them? Who owns the accounts?
You do.
Okay, so why does Joe see them? What are OWDs set to?
Private, I think.
Private. So if that was the only security setting in place, should Joe see them?
No, we cannot. I think, but we have configured roles.
Oh, okay.
That's
So step 2 is what? Roles?
Yes.
Is there a role subordinate relationship between Joe and Ryan?
Yes, I think.
Well,
There
we're
must
working.
be.
Joe is the director, and Ryan is, I think,
I
maybe
think you're
some
correct. But do you see how I started out with ownership? And then I went from ownership to what?
OWD.
OWDs.
And then from OWDs to what?
Role hierarchy.
You see how I'm going 1, 2, 3 here? Usually I figure this out at the role hierarchy. It's like, how are you getting access? Okay. Joe is the role in the role subordinate relationship, right? So now if I log in as Joe, what would you see? What are OWDs set to?
Private.
Who owns the records?
Ryan.
Okay, so what would Joe see?
If we have moved the role, then Joe would see nothing.
Nothing. Yes?
Yes.
All right. So what happens if Ryan transfers a record to Joe? What's Joe get?
Full access.
Full, which means what?
He owns a record.
And he gets what through ownership?
Read, write, transfer, delete.
Full access.
Yes.
View, edit, share, transfer, delete. What are we transferring?
The record.
Ownership.
Ownership, which means we're transferring what?
Access.
Full access.
Full access.
So then if
Yes, full
I
access.
go into an account record, I go to the details tab here, and I transfer ownership from Ryan to Joe, and then look, open ops, closed ops, owners, open case. I mean, the list goes on, right? Change owner. So now I'm transferring ownership of multiple records, am I not? What's ownership? What's that do for me? Who owns the record right now?
Joe.
So what's that mean he has?
Full access and ownership.
Right. So what then will Joe see if we log in as him?
The account record that we just have shared with them.
So if I log in as Joe, how many records will he see?
Only one.
Just one?
Yes.
Anybody disagree? It could be one. I'm thinking it's going to be multiple. Because if you saw it when I checked those boxes, when I transferred ownership, it was transferring open and closed opportunities and cases. But if I go to, I'm Joe right now, see? How many's he got? That's one account, but
All the associated records will be shared.
there's also, what level of access does Joe have?
Full.
Full access.
So Joe has full. Why does he have full?
He was he was transferred the ownership.
He owns it, right? See that? He owns the record. Can he share?
Yes.
Not in Lightning. You're like doing
Crap.
classic. Can he transfer ownership? Everybody sees it?
Yes, he can.
Yes.
What's he passing if he transfers ownership? Full access.
Full access.
Yeah. Can he delete?
He should be.
Yes, you can.
You sure? What's his profile say? Think about the object
It
setting.
doesn't matter what his
Oh,
profile
really?
because we have
So if I
given him
say
the full
create,
access. So
read,
he can delete.
edit, and I don't give him delete, can he still delete?
No.
Anybody disagree?
No, because he hasn't got the permission.
What the hell happened there? Hang
You
on.
just deleted the account, so yes, he does have permission. He does have
That's
access.
something's wrong here. So now,
Because we
okay.
just made him the record owner, so he has the full access.
Yeah, but
No
his
matter.
profile should not have had delete. Let's look at his profile. First thing I would do is look at what? Does he own the record?
Yes, he owns the
Yes.
record.
He owned it, didn't he? So he had what level of access?
Full
Full.
access.
So then I go
That's
where?
right. For WDs?
No, that it doesn't matter. He's got full
Yes.
because he owns it. Where do I go if the access side is handled?
Permissions.
Go to your profile side. Something ain't right there. He should have not been able to delete that. Maybe I gave him, you know what? I think what I did is I gave him view all, modify all on the account object on his profile. You guys with me in the object settings?
All right.
Right. I saw that earlier.
You with me?
Yes.
We'll see. we shall see. But what I'm going to do now, so I started out where? Ownership. He owned it, right? So he's got what?
Full access.
So I can go right to profile, yes? What's profile do? It's what a user can see and do with records they have access to.
Right.
I can make changes if I do hit edit, and I can make changes if I don't hit edit. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and hit edit, and I'm logged in as Joe. You see this? This is going to happen to you a million times.
Ryan, when you say you can make changes when you don't hit edit, what do you mean?
Well, I'll show you that here in a minute. There's two ways to make changes in the Force.com platform on the profile record. One is if you do hit edit, and one is if you don't. It's not that strange because if you think about it, the related list is the same way. Like you can edit the record or you can edit the related list. All right, I'm myself now. So I'm going to go to the profile. What I think happened here is the object settings on the profile, I think I gave him view all, modify all on accident. And hit save. We'll see. So I'm going to the profile here. I'll hit edit. So these are the changes I can make if I do hit edit. There's the app settings. There's our tab settings, default on, default off, tab hidden. System and general user administrative permissions. And then down here, I think what, no, I guess I didn't. I thought I did this. Let's see, why was he able to delete those? He owned them, but he didn't have delete permissions. See, this is security. Oh, that's why. He did have delete. You see it? I just forgot to remove. Let's see if this works. Go to Joe. Log in as Joe. Who owns the record?
Joe.
Joe. What's that mean he has?
Full access.
Full. What does his profile say as far as permissions?
He can delete the record.
Create, read, and edit, right? So, once we get logged in as Joe here, and we go to an account, this is the list view. I'll go to all accounts. Nothing. Did we transfer ownership again? So, this might be an access situation.
I don't think he has any anymore, right? I mean, you assigned him one and then you deleted it.
Oh, that's what it was. We deleted it. So I'll go back to myself and transfer another record.
So what about the account that you had just deleted? Let's say that was,
something we needed.
Really if that was a really important account that should not have been deleted.
Well, at that point, I'm going to have to go to my admin profile. This is pretty funny. It's a really good question. I have to go to my admin profile. And make sure that I have the tab for the recycle bin on. Right? I think I turned a lot. No, I didn't do it for the admin.
So does that mean it's gone?
There we go. Yeah, it's default on. No, I'm just making sure that I have it so when I go to the app launcher, it's in the default off area. So I can go into recycle bin.
So if this is one of your company's signature accounts, and
no, it's not that big of a deal. You get 15 days in the recycle bin. So if you delete it on accident, I just went into the recycle bin here. You can like undelete it. See?
It doesn't happen in real life. Then the phone calls and emails start happening.
I just restored it, you see. Now it's back. So then if I go and look at my account, now I'm the admin right now. It's American Banking Corporate.
And then once restored, somebody's heart rate comes back down to normal.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So there's Joe. He owns it, right? What's that mean he has if he owns it?
Full access.
Full
He's
access.
got full, right? What do his permission sides say?
You can't delete the record.
He can't delete though, right? So he's got access without permission, yes?
Yeah. So I will
So if
not
I go in as Joe, right now OWDs are set to what?
private.
Then why does Joe see an account record?
His ownership?
Because he owns it, which means he has what?
Full access.
Full access. So if I go into the account record, can he view it?
Yes, he can.
Can he edit?
Yes.
Yes.
Can he share?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, he can't right now. Why?
Enlightening.
You can't share manually in Lightning without an app from the App Exchange. If you switch to Classic, however,
Why do they do that, Ryan?
well, they don't. It's an action that you pull down from the App Exchange. You don't need somebody else already handled it, right? You just if we were in Classic, there you could share, but I can come here to the App Exchange and I can pull down a developed application that gives me that action.
No, I'm saying why do they pull it away from the normal process that you used to have in Classic?
Oh, well, because they went away from buttons, like sharing was from a button. Now sharing is done through an action. And as we move forward, we'll talk more about this. Let me show you from an admin perspective because I can switch back to Classic and show you. So if I go to my admin here, that's me. Where is it? Here's the other place. There we go. I want to switch to Classic. Sharing in Classic is done with a button. See? Sharing access in Classic on a record was done with a button. This doesn't exist in Lightning. There are no buttons in Lightning at all. So what they have in Lightning are what they call actions, which is just like a button, but they call it an action. The actions are located up here. See this? Now, the problem is if you're looking at an individual record in Lightning and you haven't pulled down the sharing action from the app exchange, you can't share with an action. They don't have a sharing action out of the box native. But you can go to the app exchange, which is like the Google Play Store for Salesforce. It's up here. And you can, I think it's free. You can upload the sharing action from here. And then it'll be available. It's just a limitation they didn't cover. They allowed a developer to do it instead. Make sense?
Yeah, it just seems like they would have somehow figured out how to make that available to a customer just based on the migration over instead of having to do an extra step of downloading an app for it.
Well, see, that's the thing. What is the business that they're in? What business is Salesforce in?
Licenses?
Yeah, are they consultants?
No.
So they would rather collect a little bit of change on the App Exchange app and get a little piece of that and let somebody else do it than them do it themselves if they can. Right? I'm not saying I know that's the case, but I know it was solved by somebody else. So share, what are we sharing?
Record.
We're sharing access, aren't we? See, that's down here. If you have full access, you can do what? View, edit, share, transfer, and delete. What are we sharing? Access. You can't share permission. You with me? Who am I logged in as right now?
Yourself.
Yep. Can I delete records as Joe?
No.
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes? I can delete records as Joe?
I'm going to say no. 'Cause
Who says no?
Chris does.
Why?
Well, I know you took it away from at the account level, so he couldn't delete records there.
Who owns that record? That American banking record?
Well,
Joe.
now I think
Yeah, so what's he got?
Well, you restored it, Ryan. So is it back to you or is it back to him?
It's still him.
Okay.
So what level of access does he have?
It's got full, but you removed the delete.
Create, read, edit, and delete, right? But we removed delete, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
So then what's he going to be able to do?
Create, edit.
Create, read, and edit, right? Because over here it's view, edit, share, transfer, and delete, right? But if he has access and no permission, can he do it?
No.
See what I mean?
Yes.
Am I losing people here? I hope not. I usually do at this point. It's okay if that's true.
Ryan, one thing I saw the under Joe, you have my accounts versus all accounts.
So I log in as Joe, right?
Yeah.
How many records does Joe own?
Just the one, I think.
Hmm?
More than one.
He's got more than one. He's got what? The main one is which?
The accounts and its related records.
Yep. So he's got the account, right? What else has he got?
Opportunity, contact.
Contact or not, right? Does he own the record?
Yes.
Can he delete?
No.
He owns it. What level of access does he have?
Full.
Which means he can do what as far as access? View, edit, share, transfer, delete. Does that mean he can do it?
Sticking with no.
No, right? What's he got to have? He's got to have both, right? He's got to have access and permission. What did he have for his object settings on the profile.
Create, read,
Can,
edit.
Can he delete?
No.
Does he have access to delete?
He has access, yes, but he can't delete.
But he doesn't have permission, does he?
Nope.
So let's say I've got read-only access, and I got create, read, and edit over here. What do I get?
read.
Read-only.
Read. Yes.
Why?
Because you have permission for that.
You have access for read-only. You got permissions for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You only have access to that record as read-only, so you're only going to get read-only.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
What if I get full access over here and I get read-only over here? What do I get?
Read.
Good. What if I've got no access and read-only? What do I get?
No access.
You won't see anything, right? You search for it, it's not there.
Not there.
Anybody totally lost right now? It's okay if you are. I told you the hard part is access versus permission. We're going to continue this on Tuesday. We will continue to do this until everybody that's in the room is like, all right, I got it. Because until we get this down, until you understand the difference between access and permission, you cannot be an admin. So I'll draw through this one more time just for, posterity here. I know this is a little bit weird right now. Access, permission. What do you get if you own it?
Full access.
What's that mean?
Have access to read, write, transfer, delete.
What are we
adding-
sharing?
Sharing the full access.
Sharing access, right? What are we transferring?
Ownership.
Which means we're transferring what?
Access.
Full access. What if I don't own the record? What do I get?
You can modify it through OWDs.
What's private mean?
That the owner gets full request, another gets read only.
Everybody with me on OWDs? Do we need to continue to talk about these over and over, or can we move on? What's next?
Roles.
What's the role hierarchy do?
Overrides OWDs.
Using a
roles and
system
subordinates.
of roles and subordinates. What's the highest level of access I can give?
Full.
Access.
Full. It's also a template that can be assigned to a user or a group of users. You should always think roles and profiles, which really means what? Access or permission. What's number 3?
Profiles.
All right. Profile. What is the first grouping of settings I can change if I do hit edit?
App.
What's an app setting? What's an app?
Custom objects and relationships to implement a business.
What's next after app settings?
Tab settings.
What's a tab?
A visual representation of the
What's
object.
default on mean?
You can see it in both app and in the tab itself.
What's default off mean?
Only in the app.
What's tab hidden mean?
You can't see it.
What comes after tab settings?
Admin.
General user and admin permissions. What did I call them?
System permissions.
System permissions. What do those do for me? Tends to be what you can do. Think like reporting, dashboards. If there's something you can't do, a lot of the times it's probably a system permission. If you go to help and training in the overview pages for a particular grouping of functionality, they'll tell you what permissions you need on the overview page. What comes after system permissions?
Session setting.
Object settings, which are what? Create, read, edit, delete. What are my super user permissions?
View all, modify all,
And what's that give us?
full access.
Full access.
The only way to get full access on the permission side is through either view all, modify all on the system permissions, or view all, modify all on that individual object. It's the one-off situation on access versus permission. The only way you can get full access on the permission side is view all, modify all. What's after object settings? We didn't cover this.
Session setting.
Session settings, desktop integration client, password policies, login hours, IP ranges. And then the question for the next class is going to be, what if you don't hit edit, what can you change? And those are going to be, anybody know?
Page layout.
Page
Field
layout,
level security.
field
and
level
record type.
security, and record type settings. So we will continue on our journey here through security. I hope I wasn't too buzzed to ruin this session. I feel like maybe I was. We had a really good grill out for lunch, so excuse me if I didn't make a whole lot of sense. But hopefully everybody learned a little something. I appreciate
Thank you, Ryan. It was great.
I won't have
Very
any.
good.
I won't have any homework this time, unless you want to hop back into security and play around a little more. We will continue to talk about this on, what is that, Tuesday? Because today's Thursday, right? So thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you staying with me, and I'm glad to have your interaction. It feels good to be working. I appreciate you helping me out of this nightmare, at least for a couple hours every week. Y'all take care of yourselves. Much love to you and your families. Be good.